In this video, we'll talk about two different ways that we can provide input to our program. Remember our first program, we had a method called main, which we defined as public static void main, and in that we passed a statement called a string with the square brackets and args, right? And in that method, at that time we didn't actually use that, but now we're going to try and use that argument to take some input from the user. So here we are saying that our program is taking an array of strings as input, and we're giving a name args to that array. We can't change the word string because that's a predefined word, but the name we're giving to this list of items that it's okay, but it's okay, Polly. Calm down. They're just playing. Okay, calm down. Lie down. Lie down. It's okay. Tell me. The piglets are playing rough outside and she's worried. Okay, anyways, if you remember the array of strings, so we passed that to our main method, public static void main, an array of strings, and then we gave it the name args. So the args, it's a word that we chose, so we could call it something else, like we could call it piglets, if we're just going to pass piglets to our method. But in this case, let's just make it so that we pass a list of animal names to our method, right? So instead of making our program just produce sheep sound, maybe we want to make a program that takes the name of an animal as input and then produces the sound of it as output. If you're using command line, we could start our program by just typing Java, the name of the program, and optionally we can provide some input. For example, we could provide 3 different strings. So here, for example, we'll pass in sheep, pig, and duck. Okay, so we have 3 different strings that are all going to our animal sound program. Now, next step is to actually take those input and do something with it. Those 3 words, sheep, pig, and duck, they come into our program as a list. And the funny thing is, they're actually referenced to as position 0, 1, and 2. And I know this is not a very natural way, but that is the way that it was designed, perhaps because the designers of the programming language were really focused on the hardware and didn't really put preference on the human interface. So it's sometimes, especially at the beginning, it's a little bit confusing to start counting things from 0. Okay, let's count the piglets. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. After practicing a little bit with arrays, you get used to it pretty fast. We'll cover arrays in depth in a future video, but for now just think of it as a list of stuff which starts from position 0. So in this case, to access the first item in the list, we reference it as animal with a square bracket and a 0 in it. So if we wanted, for example, to print that back out to the user, we will write system.out.println, and then your first animal is, then we put a plus and add our actual array item, which we got from the user at position 0 into the list, into the statement. So we could continue to do this by adding another line for the second item and another line for the third item. So this is a very rigid way to do this, and it's not very flexible. Of course, there are lots of ways that this program will break, but at least you can understand that some 3 different elements come into our program, and we were able to take them and show them back to the user. Now, the second method of accepting input from the user is using a predefined class in Java called a scanner class. Now, to use this class, we just have to import its full name. So all we have to do is write an import statement like this: import java.util.scanner, and then after that we could create a new instance of the scanner class in our application. So for example, down here we could make a new instance called input by just typing scanner input equals new scanner, and we have to pass to the scanner class where we want to receive our input from. There is a predefined word for example, receiving input from keyboard in command line. So we use system.in for that. So we just pass system.in as we are creating a new instance of our scanner class, and that way our class is going to be set up to receive input from the user when we type it in the command. What's nice about this second method of taking input from the user is that we can receive the input anytime during the life of the program, as opposed to receiving it just at the time when we're executing the program. So let's say in this case we want to tell user that we are looking for an animal name. So we say please enter an animal name, and we can print it out first. The next thing we need to do is to create a variable which we will use to store the result of whatever animal name user enters. So that's the type of a string. So we need to create our variable from as a string type. So we'll first write this word a string, then we give a name to our variable. So in this case, animal name would be good and descriptive, and then we use the assignment to put that whatever result of the next statement is into this current variable. So we use the equal symbol for that, and then we use the new object that we just created called input to read a line from the user, and to do that we have to use a method init. Now the last thing we need to do is to print out a statement back to the user so that we can show we received the input. In this case we're not going to do anything interesting, we're just going to print back the same animal name. So for example, we can say something like system.out.println got it, you're interested in plus, then we will use the variable name so that we combine these two strings and show it back to the user, right? So if they enter, for example, pig, then they will be like, got it, you're interested in pig. Now it's your turn. See if you can write a program that receives 3 names as input using the first method. So you can enter, for example, 3 different animal names, and then after each animal name, print out a statement asking the user to enter the sound of that animal using the second method, read the sound, and then print it back to the user. In the next video, we will talk about if statements and conditions. See you then!